Madhava Punjabi Hare
Jai Radha Madhava Punjabi Hare
Radha Madhava Punjabi
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachari Jamuna Tera Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachari Jamuna Tera Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivadika Jaya Asto Tarasat Śrīmad His Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Śrīl Haridas Thakur ki Kamsika Hoshi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki Jai Sri Jai Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhana ki Sri Vrindavan Dham ki Sri Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki Sri Purushottam Chaitra ki Sri Ganga Maya ki Jai Sri Jamuna Maya ki Jai Bhakti Devi ki Jai Tulsi Devi Maharani ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Oh, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam. So we're reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 9, Liberation, Chapter 8, and a little bit of Chapter 9 as well today. From text 25, the sons of Sagara meet Lord Kapila Dev. Tvan maya rachite loke. I need to see it in big print. That's the problem with these smaller books is, have a guess, the size shrinks and so does the text. So it's harder to read. Whereas here, yeah, look at that. Tvan maya rachite loke. Vastu buddhya grihadishu. Ramanti kama lobheshya. Moha vibhranta chetasaha. Tvan maya rachite loke. Vastu buddhya grihadishu. Ramanti kama lobheshya. Moha vibhranta chetasaha. Tvan maya rachite loke. Vastu buddhya grihadishu. Ramanti kama lobheshya. Moha vibranta chetasaha. Tvan maya rachite loke. Vastu buddhya grihadishu. Ramanti kama lobheshya. Moha vibranta chetasaha. Tvan maya rachite loke. Vastu buddhya grihadishu. Ramanti kama lobheshya. Moha vibranta chetasaha. Tvan maya rachite loke. Vastu buddhya grihadishu. Ramanti kama lobheshya. Moha vibranta chetasaha. Ladies? Tvan maya rachite loke. Vastu buddhya grihadishu. Ramanti kama lobheshya. Moha vibranta chetasaha. Tvanmaya rachite loke vastu buddhya grihadishu brahmanti kamalobhesya moha vibranta chetasaha. Tvat maya, through your material energy, rachite, which is manufactured, loke, in this world, vastu buddhya, accepting as factual, griha adishu, in hearth and home, etc. Brahmanti, wander, kama, by lusty desires, lobha, by greed, irshya, by envy, moha, and by illusion, vibranta, is bewildered, chetasaha, the cause of whose hearts. O my Lord, those whose hearts are bewildered by the influence of lust, greed, envy, and illusion are interested only in false hearth and home in this world, created by your Maya, attached to home, wife and children, they wander in this material world perpetually. What is hearth? What's that mean? Anybody know? Well, the fireplace. Yes, the fireplace. Yeah. Something that we appreciate in the current weather. A warm, and of course these days more likely to be a gas fire or an electric heater than actually a wooden fire. Right? And it's interesting, you know, if you go into the rooms in Prabhupada house, every one of them has a fireplace. Right? Every one of them has a fireplace. Of course, built in 1876, 1877. There was no such things as reverse cycle air conditioning systems in those days. But here it's mentioned that everybody's attached to this hearth and home, but it's false. Right? It's false. Created by Maya. Okay, let's move on, shall we? There's no purport to this verse. But basically, everybody's attached to home and family. And bewildered by kam, lobh, matsya, and moha. Right? Text 26. Adhyana savabhutatman kama karamendriyasayaha moha pasho dridaschino bhagavams tava darshanat. O super soul of all living entities, O personality of Godhead, simply by seeing you, I have now been freed from all lusty desires which are the root cause of insurmountable illusion and bondage in the material world. So who's speaking here? This is a test. Who's speaking? Amsuman. And who is he talking to? Huh? Lord Kapila. Yes. So he's saying, after having your darshan, I'm fully purified. Huh? And so that Kam, Lobh, Matsya and Moha, gone. Text 27, Sri Shukuru Vacha Itam Gitanubhavastam Bhagavan Kapilo Muni Amsumantam Uvachedam Anugraya Diyanripa. O King Parikshit, when Amsuman had glorified the Lord in this way, the great sage Kapila, the powerful incarnation of Vishnu, being very merciful to him, explained to him the path of knowledge. Sri Bhagavano Vacha Asvoyam Niyatam Vatsa Pita Maha Pasostava Imecha Pitaro Dagdha Gangambo Rantinetarat. The personality of Godhead said, my dear Amshuman, here is the animal sought by your grandfather for sacrifice. Please take it. Who was the animal? Or what was the animal? Horse. And what was the horse meant for? Huh? Jagya, yeah. Who stole it? Indra. So, Amsuman, and this is the end of a long saga, right? Or Sagara. Sagara is one of the kings coming up. It was previously Sagara. No, coming up. Okay, please take it. So Kapila Dev has the horse. As for your forefathers who have been burnt to ashes, they can be delivered only by Ganges water and not by any other means. Tam parikramya sirasa prasadya hayamanu anayat sagarastena pashuna yagyasesham samapayat. Thereafter, Amshamam circumambulated Kapila Muni and offered him respectful obeisances, bowing his head. Offered him respectful obeisances, bowing his head. After fully satisfying him in this way, Amsuman brought back the horse meant for sacrifice, and with this horse, Maharaj Sagara performed the remaining ritualistic ceremonies. Text 30. Rajam Amsu Matenyasya Nispriho Muktabandanaha Orvopadishta Margena Lebegati Manuttamam. After delivering charge of his kingdom to Amsumam, and thus being freed from all material anxiety and bondage, Sagara Maharaj, following the means instructed by Aurava Muni, achieved the supreme destination. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 8th chapter of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, entitled The Sons of Sagara Meet Lord Kapila Dev. So now, chapter 9, the dynasty of Amsuman. This chapter describes the history of the dynasty of Amsamam up to Katwanga. And it also describes how Bhagirath brought the water of the Ganges to this earth. The son of Maharaj Amsaman was Dilip. He tried to bring the Ganges to this world, but who died without success. Bhagirath, the son of Dilip, was determined to bring the Ganges to the mature world, and for this purpose he underwent severe austerities. Mother Ganges, being fully satisfied by his austerities, made himself visible to him, wanting to give him a benediction. Bhagirath then asked her to deliver his forefathers. Although Mother Ganges agreed to come down to earth, she made two conditions first. She made two conditions. First, she wanted some suitable male to be able to control her waves. Second, although all sinful men would be freed from sinful reactions by bathing in the Ganges, Mother Ganges did not want to keep all these sinful reactions. These two conditions were subject matters for consideration. Bhagirath replied to Mother Ganges, "The personality of Godhead, Lord Shiva, will be completely able to control the waves of your water. And when pure devotees bathe in your water, the sinful reactions left by sinful men will be counteracted." Bhagirath then performed austerities to satisfy Lord Shiva, who is called Ashutosh, because he is naturally satisfied very easily. Lord Shiva agreed to Bhagirath's proposal to check the force of the Ganges. In this way, simply by the touch of the Ganges, Bhagirath's forefathers were delivered and allowed to go to the heavenly planets. The son of Bhagirath was Shruta, the son of Shruta was Naba, and Naba's son was Sindhudweep. The son of Sindhudweep was Ayutayu, and the son of Ayutayu was Rituparna, who was a friend of Nala. Rituparna gave Nala the art of gambling and learned from him the art of Ashvavidya. Okay, what's Ashvavidya? Ashva. Is Ashva horses? So horse knowledge. What's that? Racing horses? Huh? Could it be? Let's look it up, shall we? Okay, here's an interesting. This is from Perplexity. Yeah. In Hindu epics and Puranas, the term appears in texts like the Bhagavat Purana 9:9-17, and here 9. Oh no, we've got. Oh, okay, that's where it's coming from. Yes, specifically this because we're reading the summary. Right, the summary's up to that verse. where it is mentioned as a body of knowledge related to horses. Now this is perhaps speculative, but it's okay. Likely encompassing their breeding, training, care, and possibly their use in warfare or ritual, right? Because it's an Ashvamedha Yajna. Interesting, huh? Yeah. In the story of King Nala and Rituparna, as recounted in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Rituparna teaches Nala the art of gambling, while in return Nala teaches Rituparna Ashvavidya the art of horses. So there's a lot to be known about horses, right? And so, you know, this is many, many millions of years ago. Many millions of years ago. And even today, horse trainers, you know, people who know the art of horses are celebrated in society. Right? Interesting. If you're a good horse trainer and your horse wins the Melbourne Cup, right, you become celebrated. Mainly because you got a lot of money. Interesting. The son of Rituparna was known as Sarvakam. Sarvakam. The son of Sarvakam was Sudas, and his son was Sodas. The wife of Sodas was named Damayanti or Madayanti, and Sodas was also known as Kalmashapada. Kalmashapada. Because of some defect in his fruitive activities, Sodas was cursed by Vasishtha to become a Rakshasa. While walking through the forest, he saw a Brahmana engaged in sex with his wife, and because he had become a Rakshasa, he wanted to devour the Brahmana. Although the Brahmana's wife pleaded with him in many ways, Sodasa devoured the Brahmana and the wife. It didn't devour the wife. And the wife therefore cursed him, saying, "As soon as you engage in sex, you will die." After 12 years, therefore, even though Sodasa was released from the curse of Vasishtha Muni, he remained sonless. At that time, with Sodasa's permission, Vasishtha impregnated Sodasa's wife Madayanti. Because Madayanti bore the child for many years but still could not give birth, Vasishtha struck her abdomen with a stone, and thus a son was born. The son was named Ashmaka. The son of Ashmaka was known as Balika. He was protected from the curse of Parashuram because of being surrounded by many women, and therefore he is also known as Narikavacha. Narikavacha, protected by women, right? Kavacha is like a protection, and Nari means the women. Okay. The Bhagavatam is quite amazing, isn't it? I mean, what we've just read there in the last few sentences is just quite strikingly what could we say? It's striking. Huh? When the entire world was devoid of Kshatriyas, he became the original father of more Kshatriyas. He is therefore sometimes called Mulaka. From Balika, Dasarath was born. From Dasarath came Idavidi, and from Idavidi came Vishvasaha. The son of Vishvasaha was Maharaj Katvanga. Maharaj Katvanga joined the demigods in fighting the demons and was victorious. And the demigods therefore wanted to give him a benediction. But when the king inquired how long he would live and understood that his life would last only a few seconds more, he immediately left the heavenly planets and returned to his own abode by aeroplane. He could understand that everything in this material world is insignificant, and thus he fully engaged in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hare. Amazing. So, text 1 of chapter 9. Sri Sukuru Vacha Amsumam Shatapastepe Ganganayana Kamyaya Kalam Mahantam Nasaknot Tata Kalena Samstitaha. Sukadeva Goswami continued, King Amsumam, like his grandfather, performed austerities for a very long time. Nonetheless, he could not bring the Ganges, dangerous to go in there. Nonetheless, he could not bring the Ganges to this material world, and thereafter, in due course of time, he died. Dilipas tatsutas tadvad asakta kalame eivan bhagiratas tasyasutas tepesa sumahattapaha. Like Amsumam himself, Dilipa, his son, was unable to bring the Ganges to this material world. And he also became a victim of death in due course of time. Then Dilipa's son, Bhagirath, performed very severe austerities to bring the Ganges to this material world. Dashayam Ashatam Devi Prasana Varadasmite Ityukta Swam Abhiprayam Shasham Savanato Nripaha. Thereafter, Mother Ganges appeared before King Bhagirath and said, I am very much satisfied with your austerities and am now prepared to give you benedictions as you desire. Being thus addressed by Ganga Devi, Mother Ganges, being thus addressed by Ganga Devi, Mother Ganges, the king bowed his head before her and explained his desire. Purport. The king's desire was to deliver his forefathers, who had been burnt to ashes because of disrespecting Kapila Muni. Text 4. Kopidaraita vegam patantya me mahitale anyata bhutalam bitva nripayasye rasatalam. Mother Ganges replied, when I fall from the sky to the surface of the planet Earth, the water certainly will be very forceful. Who will sustain that force? If I am not sustained, I shall pierce the surface of the earth and go down to Rasatala, the Patala area of the universe. Kim chaham na bhuvam yasye naramayam rijantyaham yagham mrijamita dagham la akvaham Rajam statra vichintyatam. O king, I do not wish to go down to the planet Earth, for there the people in general will bathe in my water to cleanse themselves of the reactions of their sinful deeds. When all these sinful reactions accumulate in me, how shall I become free from them? You must consider this very carefully. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, text 66. the Supreme Personality of Godhead can accept the reactions of anyone's sinful deeds and neutralize them because he is pavitra, pure, like the sun, which is never contaminated by any worldly infection. Tejiyasam nadoshaya vane sama bujo yata. Bhagavatam 10:33-29. We should look that up, huh? One who is very powerful is not affected by any sinful activity. But here we see that Mother Ganges fears being burdened with the sins of the people in general who would bathe in her waters. This indicates that no one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is able to neutralize the reactions of sinful deeds, whether one's own or those of others. Sometimes the spiritual master, after accepting a disciple, must take charge of that disciple's past sinful activities, and being overloaded must sometimes suffer. If not fully, then partially, for the sinful acts of the disciple. Every disciple, therefore, must be very careful not to commit sinful activities after initiation. The poor spiritual master is kind and merciful enough to accept a disciple and partially suffer for that disciple's sinful activities. But Krishna, being merciful to his servant, neutralizes the reactions of sinful deeds for the servant who engages in preaching his glories. Even Mother Ganges feared the sinful reactions of the people in general and was anxious about how she would counteract the burden of these sins. So let's look up that verse, 10:33-29. Right? What's the 39th chapter of the 10th canto about? Let's just have a look again. 10:33-29. 33. 29. What's chapter 33? The Rasa Dance. Yes, very interesting. And the question is, O faithful upholder of vows, oh, okay. I'll read 26 and 27. Parikshit Maharaj said, O Brahmana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord of the universe, has descended to this earth along with his plenary portion to destroy irreligion and re-establish religious principles. Right? Paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya chaduskritam. Right? So, what is it? Dharma samstapana nataya. Right? So to protect the devotees, to destroy the demons, and to establish religious principles. Sambhavami yuge yuge, yuga after yuga. So then Parikshit Maharaj says, how then could he have violated them by touching other men's wives? Good question. Huh? O faithful upholder of vows, please destroy our doubt by explaining to us what purpose the self-satisfied Lord of the Yadus had in mind when he behaved so contemptibly. That's a strong word, isn't it? Contemptibly. What's contempt? Disrespectful. Yep, that'll do. So why is Krishna behaving so disrespectfully to the husbands of the gopis? That's a long story to tell. But let's text 29. Sukadeva Goswami said, the status of powerful controllers is not harmed by any apparently audacious transgression of morality we may see in them, for they are just like fire, right? That's that word tejias, right? Powerful, which devours everything fed into it and remains unpolluted. So, interesting. That verse is being referred to. Teji asam na doshaya, no fault in the powerful. Right? Tejiyam na doshaya. Dosha means fault. Vane samabujo yata. One who is very powerful is not affected by sinful activity. Okay, so Mother Ganga is concerned about fulfilling Maharaj Bhagirath's desire, right? And this is the culmination of a number of attempts to liberate the sons of who? Who were they sons of that offended Lord Kapila and were burnt up? Loudly? King Sagara, Maharaj Sagara, yeah. So there's been a few attempts to free the sons of Maharaj Sagara from their offence to Kapila Muni. Interesting, huh? The power of offences committed to sadhus, or in this case, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, very difficult to purify, to assuage, to remove. And finally, Maharaj Bhagirath, after performing austerities, got the mercy of Mother Ganga, right? And so she's offered to fulfill his desire. I have appeared to give a benediction to you. What is it that you want? Right? So he's told her what he wants, but she's given him two conditions that need to be satisfied in order for the Ganga to appear. And of course we know two stories of how the Ganga, because the Ganga also appears, must be in a different millennium, when Lord Trivikram pokes his toe through the covering of the universe, right? That's in a previous canto of the Bhagavatam. So Mother Ganga has agreed to Bhagirath's request, but two conditions. Who can remember what those two conditions are? Raise your hands. What's the first one?
A man who can hold the force of the...
Yeah. There needs to be somebody who can hold the pressure, the water pressure, because Mother Ganga doesn't want to fall immediately through the surface of the earth into the lower planetary systems. What's the second one?
She'll be affected by the sinful sins of people who take...
Yeah, there needs to be a remedy, a way to counteract the sins of the residents of this universe, right? So, Prabhupada extrapolates the Ganga accepting the reactions of the populace, if you like, to what? What does he compare that to in the purport? Hands up if you remember. What you going to do?
Spiritual master accepting disciples.
Yeah, and in the example of the spiritual master accepting disciples, how does he describe it?
So the disciples should, after initiation, should not undertake any sinful activities.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't affect the spiritual master.
Otherwise, the spiritual master has to suffer. And it's interesting here, if not fully, then partially. Right? And it's interesting, before he gives that example, Prabhupada says, this indicates, because the Ganga, Mother Ganga, is concerned about absorbing the sinful reactions of all of those who would bathe in her waters. And Prabhupada makes the point that only Krishna, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can relieve everyone or anyone of their sinful reactions. So that's why Prabhupada quotes 1866, Savadamam prabhrityaja, mamekam sharanam braja. And of course, the method by which we surrender to Krishna is by following the instructions of the spiritual master. Right? And at initiation, we're requested to follow what we call the four regulated principles. Of course, they're the four main regulated principles. There are many regulated principles that are part of the Bhakti Marg, if you like, right? Bhakti Marg, the path of Bhakti. And Rupa Goswami elucidates on those in the 64 items of devotional service that are mentioned in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right? And of course, the first item is Ado Guru Padasraya, right? The first item is to take shelter of a spiritual master. Ado, so that's first, right? Adi, first, Guru Padasraya. One has to take shelter of the spiritual master. And of course, the spiritual master then, what's the next? What's the next item? After Guru Padasraya, what's the next item?
Learn how to discharge.
Learn, yeah. How do we do that? What's the first process or the first activity? Bhakti sir? Inquire. Good. Go to the top of the class. Yes, inquire. Pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya. Right? One needs to be, and the approach to the devotees, the approach to the guru needs to be done in a specific way to be effective. Right? Pranipat. Right? What's pranipat mean? What is a symptom of pranipat? Can somebody demonstrate pranipat to me? Easy. But not so easy. It's easy to do this. Touch feet. Right? But respect is required. This is one of the vestiges, if you like, of Vedic culture that makes modern Indian culture so attractive and so appealing and so pleasing, actually, is respect and a show of gratitude. Right? I've seen it with my friends. In the morning, the children everybody wake up, mum and dad chanting japa, and the sons will come in and touch their father's feet and touch the mother's feet. Usually the father, not the mum so often, right? I never touched my dad's feet. Although later I did learn. My father and I were at loggerheads. Very similar characters. Right, but later on I discovered that my father actually was pretty smart. When I was 16 I thought he was pretty stupid. But later on, by the time I got to 40 I realised my father was pretty smart. But don't follow in my footsteps. But anyway, this mood of respect, appreciation, right? I'll tell you a story. Did I mention this the other day in class? I don't think I did, but last week I was invited to a dance recital, dance performance, right? And Bharatanatyam is not my forte. And in fact, I find Bharatanatyam can be pretty boring, yes. In fact, I've got another invitation to go to another Arangetram. This wasn't an Arangetram. But anyway, I was wondering why Sindhu Keshavamurti, why did she invite me to this dance recital, right? And I was a chief guest. There were 3 chief guests, and the touching thing was, for me, who are an absolute, neophyte and have no knowledge of Bharatanatyam, but they invited me on stage, and then they gave me a chadar, and they gave me a garland, and gave me gifts, and welcomed. There was a welcoming, right? So naturally, you feel comfortable in that environment, right? So this is pranipat, right? Being respectful. I found out later on why we were there, and it was really touching because Sindhu, who's a really nice, she's a devotee actually, she first started her dance school with the ISKCON children. Right? 7 kids. Of course now, in that performance, there were 30 kids, and some of them were smaller than Gokul. Right? They were almost just babies, actually. Well, bit bit more than babies, right? Maybe 4 years old or 5. It was really cute and it was entertaining, right? But she invited us because she said, I wanted to thank the ISKCON Melbourne temple for giving me the opportunity to start my dance school. Right? And so for a few years, her students were just the devotees. And Kavya's daughter is still performing and dancing, taking lessons with Sindhu. But, you know, the thing is that there was a lot of respect, and she was showing gratitude and appreciation for just a little thing that I didn't do anything, actually. Right? She asked if she could teach the kids. I said, well, I didn't have any problem with it. So it really had nothing to do with it at all. Right? But she showed some gratitude and appreciation. So respect and appreciation for a little thing. Right? So that's an interesting culture. Right? That's part of the culture of pranipat. Right? And of course, we show such gratitude and appreciation for the spiritual master. Right? So we approach, and the devotees just brought, because every devotee is ultimately a representative of Krishna. And so we approach, and even actually broadly anyone. What's our culture? Trinadapi sunichena torore vasahishnuna amanena manadena, right? We're not looking for respect for ourselves, but we're prepared to offer respect to everybody. This is Lord Chaitanya's culture. Be respectful to everyone. This is the base level of our culture, is to be respectful, isn't it? One shows great respect and appreciation for the devotees, especially the spiritual master, but ultimately all. I remember when I first met the devotees, I saw all of them as Paramahamsas, right? All Paramahamsas. Wasn't until later on that I discovered there's varieties of Paramahamsas. Right? There's levels of Paramahamsas. Rupa Goswami recommends that we understand the variety, and I knew that if I asked any, or it appeared to me, that any question that I had could be answered by any devotee. Huh? And of course I was asking very simple questions in those days that could easily be answered by anybody who read the Bhagavad Gita. And of course, in people's state of ignorance, and certainly my state of ignorance at the time, I didn't understand or had some inkling and intuition as to what spiritual knowledge was. But when I met the devotees, then they clarified it all very clearly for me. Huh? I wanted to be a yogi. I didn't know what a yogi, I didn't really know how to become a yogi. But when I met the devotees, they said, easy. Chant Hare Krishna. Right? No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no unlimited sense gratification. And when I heard that, I thought, yes, that's right. Huh? And they told me, if you chant Hare Krishna, the chanting of the Maha Mantra is so imbued with spiritual potency that you'll become so purified that the 4 rules are easy to follow. Huh? So I thought, I'm in. Huh? I can do this. I was doing hatha yoga, breathing exercises, that I read in books. And I was thinking, this is ridiculous. I can't do this. And no guru. It wasn't until I met the devotees and I found people who knew how to instruct a devotee, you know, what do we call it? A newbie. I was a newbie. When I read the Bhagavad Gita, my head would swim. Couldn't understand it. But when I sat down and heard a class from the devotees, it all made sense. Right? So I had still do, have great respect for the devotees. Right? and why we should show appreciation, because they give us transcendental knowledge. And why, you know, this keys in with this purification, right? There are 5 Panchanga Bhakti, 5 principal, very, very potent and very powerful aspects of Bhakti, right? That will purify us. Even if one doesn't have faith in these processes of bhakti, they still work. And what's the first one? Hands up if you know the first item of Panchanga Bhakti.
I'm not sure if the first.
You're not sure? Oh, don't put your hand up if you're not sure. Huh? Sharanam. That's not one of them. Although it's important, but it's not. There's 5, what you going to do? Before that. Huh? No, that's a different set of, different list. Sadhu Sangha. Yeah, go to the top of the class, Zach. Sadhu Sangha. Right? Association of devotees is the first. And because they can give us transcendental knowledge, the spiritual master also gives transcendental knowledge, then we're deeply respectful and appreciative. And so pranipat. Right? And then what's the next item? Pranipat pariprashnena. Right? What does that mean? Pariprashna. Inquiry. About everything, right? Pariprashna means you can ask any questions and you'll get answers. That's what inspired me by the association of the devotees, was that they knew, and basically the instruction was what? What do you think the final instruction was of the devotees? Chant Hare Krishna. 16 rounds. Yep. Pariprashnena, and also sevaya. Have a service. There needs to be a combination of these 3 characteristics in associating with devotees. Right? Respect. Inquiry. Service attitude, right? Be prepared to serve. So if the spiritual master says jump, right? We say how high, right? And then we do it, or we try to do it at least. Right? And Krishna says, you know, this is Krishna's method of purification. Sava dharman parichajya mamekam shavanam braja. And if we do that, Krishna says, I'll relieve you of all sinful reactions. Ma suchaha, do not fear. Right? Very interesting. So Prabhupada says in more than one place, what's the most important verse in the Bhagavad Gita? Right? And of course everybody says, Savadhamam parijjaja mamikam saranam braja, right? Prabhupada says no. He doesn't say this very often, but there are places where he does. And then Prabhupada says the most important verse of the Bhagavad Gita is 434. Right? Because in 434 is given the key or the essence of surrender. Right? We can't approach Krishna directly, and so therefore we approach through the spiritual master or through the devotees. That's why it's important that we all act according to the instructions of the spiritual master, according to Krishna's instructions, because we all of us are representatives of Krishna, right? And just as I had the experience when I met the devotees and they could tell me what the Bhagavad Gita was all about, that you're not this body, but basic things. Basic knowledge, learning that often you don't find in other faith traditions. I know I was looking in Christianity, I was looking in Buddhism, I was looking in Hinduism. But you know, the Hindu texts that are commonly available tell you that you are God, right? And I couldn't get my head, well, I like that idea. But the reality taught me something completely different. Huh? I tried hard to control the creation because I was God, but it didn't quite do what I wanted it to do. So I discovered, that ain't right. That's not right. Yep. So, association of the devotees is the beginning. Kirtan, Sankirtan, Bhagavat Shravan, hearing the Bhagavatam, Murti Seva, worshipping the deity, and Mathuravas, which means living in Mathura, or living in a sacred place, basically. We can broadly... So those 5 features are empowered or endowed with spiritual potency, even for a person who doesn't have faith in them. They're an impetus for Krishna prema, right? Love of Krishna. But purification also, right? Purification, and so we saw that with who saw Lord Kapila? Who was that? Amsavan, yes, and he said, I've had your darshan, I'm now purified. Right? So when we come into the contact with these 5 items of prema bhakti, we're purified. Bhagavatam purifies us. Association of the devotees purifies us. Sankirtan purifies us. Worshipping in the temple, worshipping the deity purifies us. Whether we have faith in it or not, it works. Right? So, the respect, that culture of respect is essential for a successful execution of devotional service. And it's inherent within the culture of the Chaitanya Vaishnavas. There's a description in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Haridas Pandit. Haridas Pandit, who I think it's another devotee. It's different to Haridas Thakur. Maybe the same devotee, but anyway, there's a description in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Haridas Pandit, who couldn't see the faults of others. He could only see the good in others. Just like Sindhu appreciated the fact that we let her have a dance school. Little thing for us. But she appreciated that and showed her appreciation with affection and thanks. This is the nature of gratitude, right? And of course, we know that everybody is a mixture of good and bad, right? And maybe present company accepted, you're all Paramahamsas. No bad qualities, right? But we focus on the good. And even if there's things that, if there may be some bad, because we know everybody has a combination of good and bad, we still deal with the bad in a respectful way, right? And in a positive way. And Prabhupada says in the purport to that verse that describes Hari Pandit's quality of never seeing the faults, he said this is the nature of a devotee. He only sees the good, not like the flies, right? That go. He said that those who find fault in others, they're like flies that go to what? What does Prabhupada say? Huh? No, it's a bit more graphic than that, I'm afraid. Like the flies that go to sores, right? Or the flies that go to stool. So very, very interesting. Here, Prabhupada says that we need to respect and appreciate and value the spiritual master. And we do that by following the spiritual master's instructions. And by following the spiritual master's instructions, one, by Krishna's grace, right, one becomes purified. Because Prabhupada's making the point here that Krishna is the purifier. And that's why Mother Ganga is saying, there must be a remedy. What's the remedy for the fact that the residents on the earth planet will bathe in the Ganga to be purified of their sinful reactions? How many of you here have bathed in the Ganga? Raise your hands. Yeah. How do you feel after you've had a bath in the Ganga? Cold, yes, very often. But enlivened, right? Purified. Pavitra, right? Cleansed. So then, what's the remedy? We're giving our karma to Ganga, right? So what's the remedy by which the Ganga is purified? Huh? Yeah, the devotees who bathe in the Ganga absorb the sinful reactions. That's an interesting. So therefore again, we need to respect the devotees because they're sinless. Huh? So Prabhupada's warning is one should be free from sinful reactions by surrendering to the instructions of the spiritual master, and that the spiritual master may partially suffer the reactions of disciples who, for whatever reason, and sometimes circumstantially, have engaged in sinful activities. Right? Prabhupada does mention that. I need to look in here, just hang on. Purport. Yep. So, yeah, every disciple therefore must be very careful not to commit sinful activities after initiation. The poor spiritual master, interesting, Prabhupada uses the words poor, is kind and merciful enough to accept a disciple and partially suffer for that disciple's sinful activities. But Krishna, being merciful to his servant, neutralizes the reactions of sinful deeds for the servant who engages in preaching his glories. So there's the remedy, right? Those who are preachers are purified of sinful reactions by Krishna. Very interesting. So that means every devotee of ISKCON, as long as they're preaching, right? And preaching can be all sorts of things, right? As Bhaktivedanta Swami humorously said in Mayapur this year, preach, and if you have to, use some words. Yeah? So even cleaning the courtyard or cleaning the pots, dressing appropriately with tilak and in devotional attire, setting a good example is preaching. People will be attracted to how we interact and engage with each other and how we deal with each other, especially when it's done respectfully. People say, when I come to the temple, I feel important. Devotees make me feel important. And that has a huge impact on the consciousness of others, because that service attitude is there, that respect is there, that encouragement and support is there. So, now, Mother Ganga is anxious about how she will counteract the sins of those who will bathe in her waters. But that's ameliorated by the devotees, especially the preachers, who bathe in the Ganga and they purify the Ganga. So we need to be very respectful and careful in our dealings with the devotees. Otherwise, if we commit offences, we could end up being burnt to ashes and remaining in the material world unpurified for many lifetimes. Well, others' lifetimes. Interesting, isn't it? How Bhagirath eventually succeeded in liberating his forebears. Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions on any of these points? Have we got a microphone for Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the class. So, Prabhu, you told that by taking bath in Ganga, all the sinful reaction are washed. So, I have a question, like, how to understand the people who sink in Ganga and drown in Ganga, and
they got Ganga's mercy. Maybe in a dosage that they weren't expecting, or But that's considered pious, right? That's considered pious. If you drown in the Ganga, that's considered an elevated departure. Right? Especially if it's in a place like, a holy tirtha or Jammastan, like Mayapur. Right? There are many sacred places where leaving the body in those places means elevated to the spiritual world. Instantly. But I don't suggest you try it. Not recommended. Huh?
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the class. Prabhu, I had a question that devotees usually don't concern much with getting rid of sinful actions and more about devotion. So what should be our mood and consciousness if one takes bath, like, let's say, in holy places like Ganga?
What was the first bit?
So, Ganga takes off the sinful reactions, but devotee usually shouldn't be concerned about prioritizing to get rid of sinful reactions, but more towards devotion. So how does a devotee, what should be the consciousness and mindset of a devotee while taking bath in a holy place like a Ganga?
Well, it's interesting that Srila Prabhupada mentions that the devotees don't go to holy places just to take a bath. That's like a ritual that's beneficial, right? But rather, they take advantage of the association of the saintly persons the sadhus and the saintly persons that are there, so they can gain further impetus for their devotional practices. So we generally don't go just to discard sins, because ordinarily a devotee who's chanting Hare Krishna, worshipping the deities, engaging in kirtan, hearing the Bhagavatam, they're already pavitra, right? Oh, what's that verse? Oma pavitra pavitro va sarvavastam katopi va yasmaret pundarikaksham sabhayabhyantaraha suchihi. So when we remember, that means we're remembering Krishna, right? So when we smaranam, remember pundarikaksham, Krishna's lotus-eyed Krishna, then automatically we're purified. So we're chanting Hare Krishna, we're worshipping the deity, hearing the Bhagavatam, residing in a sacred place. So this is why the devotees purify the Ganga, because they don't go there just to drop off sinful reactions. Bloop. Right? And if we associate with the devotees in those places, then what happens? We become even further purified in desire, in determination, in practice. And the same goes with bathing in the Ganga. It's an inspiration that propels our devotional service forward. Right? And so that means more purification or more dedication. I used to look at the devotees and in class, I don't do it very much these days, maybe I should, and I'd look at the aura of the devotees. You know what the aura is? The shine around their heads. And they say, wow, he's got a nice aura. Maybe that just reveals how much of a hippie I am. Unless they think, well, he looks pretty transcendental. Because everybody emits vibrations, right? So every devotee who's a sadhaka, like once when Prabhupada was asked, who's a pure, who's a pure devotee? Prabhupada said every member of ISKCON is a pure devotee. Right? Why? Because they're following in the footsteps of the spiritual master. If you're not, then you're not really a member of ISKCON. In what sense? Right? We may be going through the motions. But even if we say we've offended somebody or we've made a mistake, we feel left out. Right? I'm not really a devotee. In fact, devotees are so humble that usually they feel that they don't really qualify as a devotee, right? But of course that's a qualification to be a devotee. Right? And they follow, or at least they following the footsteps of the spiritual master. Right? Ado Guru Padasraya. That's the first principle. So those devotees purify the Ganga because they themselves are free from sinful reaction, and the devotees are so powerful, even the neophytes are so powerful that they can purify others. Right? And how do they do that? How do we purify others? Not that we do it, we're Krishna's agents, but how do we purify others? Huh? Yeah, preaching. And what's the first thing we preach? Huh? Somebody's mumbling under their breath over here. What was it? Chant Hare Krishna. Huh? What's the first thing we say to people? The first and last? Chant Hare Krishna. Right? And so, when people hear that, what do? They chant. Even they see us. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Right? The devotees are chanting. And so people say, oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna. Right? And so then who's doing the purification? Who's purifying? The holy name. Krishna, in other words, is doing the purifying. And if we deliver that message sincerely, and so the devotees who are preachers are allowing Krishna's Shakti, Krishna's potency, to work through them. But the devotee understands, not me, it's actually Krishna. Right? And if I give Krishna faithfully to others, then Krishna will purify. So that's why we need to respect the devotees. Okay, now we need to respect the Mahaprasadam. Is that right? Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai, Mahaprasadam ki jai. Let's hope that it hasn't all been eaten.